had spent her entire life learning about the things that could kill her people. As an archivist of Prime, it was her duty to preserve the warnings, to teach the young ones about the dangers that lurked between the stars. She stood now in the communal learning hall, her blue skin pale under the soft light, her large dark eyes scanning the faces of 20 younglings who sat cross-legged on the floor before her. "Today," she said, her voice carrying the weight of generations, "we speak of the most dangerous species the galaxy has ever known." She activated the holographic projector, and the air filled with images. A creature appeared, standing on 2 legs but there the similarities ended. It had small eyes, forward-facing like a predator. Its skin came in various shades of brown and pink and tan. Its teeth were visible when it opened its mouth, and some of those teeth were sharp, meant for tearing flesh. "Humans," said, and she watched the younglings shrink back from the image. The hologram shifted to show data, numbers that told a story of horror. Humans could survive temperatures that would freeze a solid. They could endure heat that would cook blood. They healed from wounds that would kill most species. They could function without sleep for days, pushing their bodies past all reasonable limits through something they called willpower. "They are pursuit predators," continued. "On their home world they did not hunt by being faster or stronger than their prey. They hunted by following, walking, never stopping. Their prey would run and the humans would walk. The prey would run again and the humans would walk. Eventually the prey would collapse from exhaustion and the humans would still be coming." A youngling named Save raised a trembling hand. "Why did they not stop? Why did the prey not hide?" "Because humans do not give up," answered. "It is not in their nature. When they want something, they pursue it until they have it or until they are dead. There is no middle ground with them." She changed the image again. Now it showed humans in battle armor, carrying weapons that glowed with deadly energy. These images came from the Galactic Assembly archives, recorded during conflicts that had shaped the known universe. 40 years ago, the Empire conquered a world called Threshold. The people there, they were enslaved. They sent out a distress call, hoping someone would hear. Someone did. The hologram showed human ships descending through clouds of smoke and fire. 300 humans answered that call. 300 against an occupation force of 12,000 soldiers. The battle lasted 6 days. Paused, letting the silence build. When it was over, no remained alive on Threshold. The humans had lost 60 of their own. They buried their dead, freed and left. They asked for nothing in return. The Empire never attempted to reconquer that world. The younglings were silent, their eyes wide with fear. Elder, who had been sitting in the back of the hall, rose slowly and walked to stand beside. He was old. His blue skin faded to pale gray in places, his eyes clouded with age, but his voice was still strong. "I was young when word of Threshold reached us," he said. "I remember my mother gathering us close, telling us to pray that humans would never learn of Prime. She said they were monsters wearing the shape of people. She said they laughed in the face of death. She said they formed bonds with creatures that should be their enemies, that they kept predators in their homes as companions, that they loved things that could kill them." He looked down at the younglings. "She told me that if I ever saw a human, I should run. Not because running would save me, but because it might buy time for others to escape." Was about to continue the lesson when a sound cut through the air. It was sharp and urgent, a tone that every knew from childhood. The emergency beacon. She rushed to the communication panel on the wall, her heart's pounding in her chest. "Unknown vessel entering atmosphere," the automated system reported. "Configuration does not match any registered craft. Attempting identification." A moment of silence. "Vessel identified, human origin, emergency response class." Felt the blood drain from her face. Around her she heard younglings crying, heard Elder ordering everyone to remain calm. But how could anyone be calm? The monsters from the stories were here. They were coming. She moved without thinking, her archivist training taking over. She had to see. She had to document. That was her purpose, her duty. Even if it killed her, she had to record what happened so that others might learn from it. She ran from the hall, ignoring the calls of Elder behind her. Through the winding streets of the settlement she ran, past who were rushing to hide in their homes, past mothers clutching children, past elders who stood frozen in terror. She reached the edge of the settlement and climbed the small hill that overlooked the landing field. Her lungs burned from the effort, her legs ached, but she did not stop. She crouched behind a cluster of rocks and watched the sky. The ship broke through the clouds. It was small, sleek, built for speed and maneuverability. Its hull was white with markings in a language could not read. It descended slowly, almost gently, and touched down on the landing field with barely a sound. For a long moment, nothing happened. The ship sat there, silent and still, while watched and waited and tried to control her breathing. Then a door opened in the side of the vessel. A ramp extended to the ground. A figure appeared in the doorway. His grip on the rocks tightened until her fingers ached. She watched the human step out into the light of Prime's sun. It was smaller than she had expected, shorter than the images had suggested. It had yellow hair and pale skin, and it moved with a strange grace that seemed almost careful. The human stood at the bottom of the ramp and looked around at the empty field, at the silent settlement, at the world that had gone still with fear. Did not run. She could not run. She could only watch and wait and wonder if the stories had been right all along. The monster had arrived. The human stood alone on the landing field for a very long time. Watched from her hiding place, her body pressed against the cold rocks, her heart beating so hard she feared the sound might give her away. The creature did not move toward the settlement. It did not draw a weapon. It simply stood there, hands visible at its sides, and waited. A second figure emerged from the ship. This one was taller, broader, with dark skin and hair cut close to the skull. It carried a case of some kind, marked with symbols that did not recognize. The two humans spoke to each other in their strange language, their voices carrying across the empty field. Then the taller one went back inside the ship, leaving the first one alone again. Did not understand. The story said humans were aggressive, that they took what they wanted through force. Why was this one waiting? What was it doing? An hour passed, then another. The sun moved across the sky and still the human stood there. Legs cramped from crouching, her throat grew dry from thirst, but she did not move. She was an archivist. She had to see. She had to know. Finally, movement came from the settlement. Elder, the leader of their community, walked slowly toward the landing field. He was flanked by two younger, but they hung back as he approached the human. His steps were unsteady, his hands trembling at his sides. The human saw him coming and took a single step forward. Then it stopped, as if it understood that moving too quickly might cause fear. It raised one hand, palm outward, and spoke. Its voice was softer than had expected. "I am Lieutenant Amy Cole," the human said through a translation device that turned its words into speech. "We received an automated distress beacon from this location. We came to help." Elder stopped several paces away from the human. "We sent no beacon." "The beacon was old," Amy Cole said. "Very old. It may have been placed here generations ago before your people settled this world. But when we received it, we came. That is what we do." "Why?" His voice cracked on the word. "Why would humans come to a world they have never seen, for people they have never met?" The human called Amy Cole tilted her head slightly, as if the question confused her. "Because the beacon asked for help. Because someone, long ago, thought that someone might need rescue here someday. They were right, though not in the way they expected." She gestured back toward her ship. "My colleague, Dr. Pierce, has been scanning your world since we entered the system. Your crops are infected with a fungal blight. It spreads slowly, but it is spreading. In 8 months, maybe 10, your harvest will fail completely. Your people will starve." Felt the words like a blow to her chest. The crops had seemed healthy. The farmers had reported nothing unusual. How could this human know something they did not? Elder seemed equally stunned. That cannot be. Our fields are green, our food stores are full. The blight works beneath the surface, Amy Cole said. By the time you see the damage, it will be too late, but we can help. Dr. Pierce he specializes in agricultural diseases. If you allow him to study the blight, he may be able to create a counteragent. And what do you want in return? The question hung in the air between them, leaned forward, desperate to hear the answer. This was the moment when the truth would come out. This was when the human would reveal its true purpose, its hidden demands, the price that would have to be paid. Amy Cole's face changed. The corners of her mouth turned downward, her brow creased. It was an expression had never seen before. We want nothing, the human said. We are the Emergency Response Corps. We help people. That is our only purpose. Behind Elder, the two younger shifted nervously. One of them whispered something that could not hear, raised a hand to silence them. You will forgive me, he said slowly, if I find that difficult to believe. We have heard the stories about your kind. I know, Amy Cole's voice was gentle. I know what the galaxy says about us. Some of it is true. We are predators. We are dangerous. We have done terrible things to those who threaten what we love. She paused. But we have also done this. We have crossed the dark between stars to help strangers because someone somewhere asked for help. Both of these things are true about us. We are complicated creatures. Movement caught eye. A small group of younglings had crept to the edge of the settlement, peering around a building at the strange scene on the landing field. They were too young to fully understand the danger. They were curious. Amy Cole saw them too. Her face changed again, and this time the change was dramatic. The tension left her shoulders. Her eyes went soft. The corners of her mouth curved upward, revealing teeth, but not in the way had expected. This was not a predator baring its fangs. This was something else entirely. The human crouched down, making herself smaller, less threatening. She raised one hand and made a small waving motion toward the children. Had studied humans for years. She had memorized every warning, every piece of data, every story of violence and conquest. But she had never seen this. She had never read about this expression, this softening, this warmth that seemed to radiate from the creature like heat from a fire. She did not know what it meant. But she knew somehow that it mattered. Dr. Pierce emerged from the ship again, carrying equipment, ready to work. Elder stood frozen, uncertain, caught between the stories he had always believed and the strange reality standing before him. Made a decision. She rose from her hiding place and walked down the hill toward the landing field. Her legs shook with every step. Her instincts screamed at her to run, to hide, to survive. But she was an archivist, and the archives were incomplete. She needed to know what that expression meant. 3 days passed and the humans did not attack. They did not make demands. They did not take anything from the people. Instead, they worked. Dr. Pierce barely slept, watched him move between the fields and the small laboratory he had set up near his ship, collecting samples, running tests, staring at data screens until his eyes turned red and heavy. When Elder suggested he rest, he simply shook his head and kept working. The blight will not rest, he said. Neither will I. Had been assigned to observe the humans and document everything they did. It was her duty as an archivist, but it had become something more than duty. She found herself fascinated by these creatures, by the way they moved and spoke and interacted with the world around them. Amy Cole spent most of her time near the settlement, talking to any brave enough to approach her. Most adults kept their distance, but the children were different. Fear had not yet taken root in their hearts the way it had in their elders. They watched Amy with curious eyes, creeping closer each day. On the third morning, saw something remarkable. A group of younglings had gathered near the edge of the landing field, watching Amy from what they thought was a safe distance. Amy noticed them and reached into a compartment on her ship. She pulled out a round object, bright red, about the size of a fruit. "Hey," she called to them, her voice light and warm. "Wanna play?" The younglings looked at each other, uncertain. But one of them, a brave little female named Tessa, took a step forward. Amy smiled that strange smile again and gently tossed the ball toward her. Tessa caught it clumsily, her small hands gripping the unfamiliar object. She stared at it, then looked up at Amy. "Throw it back," Amy said, miming the motion with her hands. Tessa threw the ball. Her aim was poor and it sailed far to Amy's left. But Amy ran after it, scooped it up, and threw it back to Tessa with a laugh. "Good throw, try again." For the next hour, watched the human play with the children of Prime. Amy never grew impatient when they missed the ball. She never scolded them for throwing poorly. When one youngling accidentally hit her in the face with a wild throw, she laughed so hard that tears formed in her eyes. Did not understand. This was not the behavior of a monster. This was not the creature from the archives. That afternoon, she approached Amy directly for the first time. The human was sitting on a rock near the field, drinking water from a container, watching the crops sway in the breeze. She looked tired but peaceful. "May I ask you questions?" said, "for the archives?" Amy turned to look at her and that smile appeared again. "Of course, sit down, please." Sat, keeping a careful distance between them. Her hearts were racing, but she forced herself to remain calm. "I have studied your species for many years. I have read all the records of human violence, the wars, the conquests, the hunting." "All true," Amy said quietly. "Then I do not understand what I am seeing here. You could take anything you wanted from us. We could not stop you. Why do you help us instead?" Amy was silent for a long moment. She stared out at the fields, at the sky, at something could not see. "Do you have siblings?" Amy finally asked. "I have a brother. He lives in the Eastern Settlement." "I have a sister," Amy said. "Her name is Grace. She is 7 years younger than me. When we were children, I used to protect her from everything. Bullies at school, storms that frightened her, bad dreams." She paused. "When I grew up, I realized that I could not always be there to protect her. That scared me more than anything else in my life." She turned to look at directly. "So I joined the Emergency Response Corps, because if I cannot always protect my sister, maybe I can protect someone else's sister, someone else's brother, someone else's child." "But we are not your family," said. "We are strangers. We are different species." "Does that matter?" Amy asked. "When you see a child who needs help, does it matter what species they are? When you see someone suffering, do you check their blood before deciding if they deserve compassion?" Had no answer. She had never thought about it that way. "Humans are dangerous," Amy continued. "The stories are not wrong. We have done terrible things. We can be cruel. We can be violent. We can be monsters." She picked up a small stone and turned it over in her fingers. "But we can also choose. We can choose what to hunt. We can choose who to protect. Every human every day makes that choice. And you chose to protect strangers." "I chose to protect anyone who needs protecting. That is the choice I made." Thought about the archives, about the generations of warnings and fears. She thought about the stories that had shaped her entire life. "What is that expression?" she asked suddenly. "The one you make with your face, when your mouth curves upward and your eyes go soft. What does it mean?" Amy looked surprised by the question. Then her face shifted and there it was again. That warmth, that light. "This," she said, "this is a smile. It means I am happy. It means I feel joy. It means that right now in this moment I am glad to be alive and glad to be here with you." A smile, such a simple thing, such a small movement of muscles and skin. But as looked at Amy Cole, at this human who had crossed the stars to help strangers, she felt something crack open inside her chest. The fear was still there, but now there was something else growing alongside it. Something that felt like hope. From across the field, Dr. Pierce shouted in excitement. He waved his arms, beckoning them over. "I did it," he called out. "I found the counteragent. We can save your crops." Amy smiled again, and this time thought she was beginning to understand what it meant. The work began immediately. Dr. Pierce trained the farmers to apply the counteragent, showing them how to mix it, how to spray it, how to ensure it reached the roots where the blight had taken hold. He worked alongside them, his human hands deep in alien soil, his face streaked with dirt and sweat. Had never seen anything like it. This human, this creature from the species that haunted their nightmares, knelt in the fields beside elders and worked as if he were one of them. He asked questions about their farming techniques. He complimented their irrigation systems. He treated them not as lesser beings to be saved, but as equals to be respected. Amy Cole helped where she could, carrying supplies, organizing distribution, making sure the farmers had everything they needed. She had a gift for calming frightened who still struggled to accept human help. She never pushed. She never demanded trust. She simply showed up, did the work, and waited for fear to fade. A week passed. The counteragent was spreading through the fields, killing the blight before it could destroy the harvest. For the first time in generations, the of Prime had hope. Then the sky fell apart. Was in the fields when the alarm sounded. She looked up and saw streaks of light cutting through the clouds. Ships, many ships. They were not human vessels. Amy sprinted past her, heading for her own ship. "Get everyone inside," she shouted. "Now move." Within minutes, the settlement was in chaos. Ran for shelter, parents carrying children, elders helped by the young. Found herself swept up in the tide of bodies, pushed toward the communal hall where the thick walls might offer some protection. She broke free and ran instead toward the landing field. She had to know. She had to see. Amy's ship was powering up, its engines glowing with blue fire. Dr. Pierce was already inside. Amy stood at the base of the ramp, speaking rapidly into a communication device. "5 raiders," she was saying. "Agricultural target, population approximately 3,000, requesting immediate assistance. Any vessels in range, please respond." Everyone in this region of space knew the. They were pirates, slavers, predators who preyed on weak worlds. They would take the harvest. They would take prisoners. They would burn what remained. Elder appeared beside, his old face gray with terror. "We cannot fight them," he said. "We have no weapons, no ships. We are farmers." Amy looked at him, and for the first time saw something hard in those human eyes. Something cold and sharp and dangerous. "You will not fight them," Amy said. "We will." "You are 2 humans in 1 small ship. They are 5 vessels with crews of hundreds. You will die." "Maybe," Amy's voice was steady. "But we will buy time. Others are coming. I have sent the call." "Why?" His voice broke. "Why would you die for us? You do not even know us." Amy smiled, but it was a different smile than before. There was sadness in it, and steel. "Because that is what we do," she said. "Because someone has to stand between the darkness and the innocent. Today, that someone is us." She turned to board her ship but stepped forward. "Wait." Amy paused. "I believe you," said. "I believe you are what you say you are. Please, do not die." Amy reached out and did something that did not expect. She touched the shoulder gently, briefly. "We will do our best. Get to shelter." The ship lifted off minutes later, rising into the sky where 5 raiders waited in orbit. Watched it go, her heart caught between hope and despair. For an hour there was silence. The huddled in their shelters, waiting for death, waiting for slavers, waiting for the end of everything they knew. Then new sounds came from the sky. More engines, more ships. Ran outside and looked up. 3 vessels were descending through the clouds, much larger than Amy's ship, bearing the same markings. Human vessels. A voice crackled through the communication systems of the settlement, broadcast to everyone who could hear. "This is captain of the cargo vessel Steady Hand. Prime is now under human protection. Raiders, You have 30 seconds to leave this system. If you remain, we will demonstrate why the galaxy tells stories about us." Held her breath. The whole world seemed to hold its breath. 20 seconds passed. The raiders turned and fled. They did not fire a single shot. They did not issue threats or make demands. They simply ran, as fast as their engines could carry them, away from the humans who had answered the call. Amy's ship returned to the surface an hour later. When she stepped out onto the landing field, was waiting. "You came back," said. "I told you we would do our best." Amy looked tired, but she was smiling. "Captain and the others will stay in orbit for a few days, just to make sure the do not return." Looked up at the sky, at the human ships circling her world like guardian spirits. "The stories were true," she said slowly. "Humans are monsters." Amy's smile faltered. "But the stories were also incomplete," continued. "They forgot to mention that sometimes monsters choose to protect instead of destroy. Sometimes the most dangerous creature in the galaxy is the one standing between you and the things that want to hurt you." Amy's smile returned, brighter than before. "Now you understand," she said. Thought about the archives, about the warnings, about the fear that had shaped her people for generations. The fear had been right. Humans were dangerous. But danger, she was learning, could be a gift. 1 year later, stood in the communal learning hall where it had all begun. 20 younglings sat before her, the same way younglings had sat before archivists for countless generations. But today, the lesson would be different. "Today," she said, "we speak of humans." She activated the holographic projector. The old images appeared, the same ones she had shown a year ago. The predator eyes, the pursuit hunting, the statistics of survival that seemed impossible, the wars and conquests and terrible violence. The younglings shrank back, just as younglings always had. "Everything you see here is true," said. "Humans are pursuit predators. They never give up. They can survive conditions that would kill us. They have destroyed armies and conquered worlds and done things that seem beyond belief." She paused. But the old archives were incomplete. They told us what humans could do. They did not tell us what humans choose to do. She changed the display. New images appeared. Amy Cole crouching on the landing field waving at frightened children. Dr. Pierce, covered in dirt, working beside farmers to save their crops. Human ships standing between Prime and Raiders, offering protection to strangers they had never met. 1 year ago, a human ship landed on our world. I was afraid. Everyone was afraid. The stories had taught us to fear humans more than anything else in the galaxy. She walked among the younglings, looking down at their wide eyes. But the humans did not attack us. They did not demand tribute. They did not take our freedom or our lives. They saw that we were in danger and they helped us. When raiders came to destroy us, humans stood in their path. They risked their lives for people they did not know, from a species they had never met. "Why?" a youngling asked. The same question had asked Amy so long ago. "Because they chose to," answered. "Humans are dangerous because they are strong and relentless and capable of great violence. But they are also dangerous because they choose their battles. They decide who deserves their wrath and who deserves their protection. Once they decide that you are theirs to guard, nothing in the galaxy can stop them." She returned to the front of the hall and changed the image one more time. Now the display showed a human face. Amy Cole, smiling. "This expression is called a smile," said. "It means warmth. It means welcome. It means that the human who makes this face is happy to see you, glad to be in your presence, willing to treat you as a friend." She touched the hologram gently. "When I first saw this expression, I did not understand it. It was not in our archives. No one had thought to record it. We were so busy documenting human violence that we forgot to document human kindness." The door at the back of the hall opened. Elder entered, his step slow but his face bright with news. He said, "The human delegation has arrived. The treaty discussion will begin soon. Nodded, she had been expecting this. In the year since the attack, humans had been talking, building trust, laying the groundwork for something unprecedented, a formal protection agreement, an alliance between the monsters of the galaxy and the farmers of Prime. There is one more thing, added. Lieutenant Cole has requested permanent assignment here as liaison. She wishes to stay on our world. Felt something warm bloom in her chest. I will go greet her. She left the younglings in care and walked through the settlement toward the landing field. The path was familiar now. She had walked it hundreds of times over the past year, no longer in fear, no longer hiding behind rocks to watch from a distance. The human vessel had already landed. Several figures in formal clothes were disembarking, diplomats and officials here to negotiate the treaty. But's eyes found Amy immediately. The human stood apart from the others, looking out at the fields where crops grew tall and healthy. The blight was gone. The harvest would be abundant. Prime would thrive. Amy turned as approached. That smile appeared, the one that had changed everything. Amy said, "It is good to see you." "It is good to see you too," stopped a few feet away, suddenly uncertain. "I heard you requested to stay, to live here. If your people will have me. After everything you have done, you will always be welcome here." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the wind move through the crops. Somewhere behind them, the treaty discussions would begin soon. History would be made. The relationship between humans would change forever. But for now, there was just this. Two beings from different worlds standing side by side, watching life grow. Amy said softly, "Do something for me." "Anything." Smile. Blinked, "I do not know how. My face does not move the way yours does." "Try anyway, not with your face, with your heart." Thought about the past year, about fear transforming into trust, about monsters becoming friends, about stories that grew and changed and became something new. She felt something shift inside her, a warmth, a light. "There," Amy said, her own smile growing wider, "just like that." Did not know if her face had changed at all, but she knew that something had, deep inside where it mattered. The galaxy had told stories of monsters called humans, terrifying stories, true stories, but those stories had been incomplete. They had forgotten to mention that sometimes the monsters smile at you. And sometimes, if you are very lucky, you learn to smile back.